The woman standing on my porch was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Her hands shook as she held out a faded photograph. "Please," she whispered. I stared at the picture. A little girl with pigtails, dark eyes, a smile I hadn't seen in 23 years. My sister. The sister I thought had died in the fire that took our parents. I managed to say, but my voice cracked halfway through. She looked up at me with those same dark eyes, now redrimmed and desperate. "My name is Claire, and I'm 31 years old. For most of my life, I believed I was the only survivor of the house fire that killed my family when I was 8. I spent my childhood in foster care, my teenage years in group homes, and my 20s building a life from nothing. I became a social worker because I understood what it meant to lose everything. I got married to a kind man named David. We bought a small house in Connecticut. I thought I'd made peace with my past. Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, my doorbell rang. The woman on my porch was 29. She had my mother's nose, my father's chin. She was shaking so badly I thought she might collapse. "My name is Emma," she said. I invited her inside because I didn't know what else to do. David was at work. The house felt too quiet. Emma sat on my couch and held that photograph like it was the only real thing in the world. I asked. 3 days later, Emma came back with a folder full of documents. Hospital records. A birth certificate. Pages and pages of notes written in unfamiliar handwriting. She spread them across my kitchen table while I made coffee with trembling hands. "I was in the hospital that night," she said. "Pneumonia. Our aunt picked me up the next morning before she heard about the fire." I sat down hard. Emma pulled out another photograph. A woman I barely remembered. "My mother's sister, Margaret. She raised me," Emma said quietly. "In Vermont. She told me you died too. I didn't find out the truth until she passed away last year. I found letters she'd hidden, letters from social services. Claire, they told her you survived. She knew." The coffee pot beeped, but neither of us moved. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. I whispered. Emma's face crumpled. I think she couldn't afford both of us. The letters mentioned financial assistance she turned down. I think she chose me because I was younger. The rage came slowly, then, all at once. 23 years. Over the next few weeks, Emma and I met 4 more times. Each meeting felt like excavating a grave. We compared memories. I remembered the blue teddy bear she'd slept with. She remembered the song I used to sing. We had fragments of the same childhood, torn down the middle. David thought we should take things slow. But I couldn't. This was my sister. My blood. The only family I had left. During our 5th meeting at a diner near my house, Emma ordered the same thing I did without looking at the menu. Pancakes, extra butter, no syrup. We looked at each other and started laughing, and then we were both crying. "I used to have dreams about you," she admitted. "But they told me you were gone, so I thought I was just making you up." I reached across the table and grabbed her hand. "You're real." She squeezed back so tightly it hurt. But then, her expression changed. She pulled her hand away. "There's something else I need to tell you," she said slowly. "Something I found in Margaret's papers." My stomach dropped. Emma's voice got very small. The next morning, Emma brought copies of police reports she'd requested from the Vermont Records Office. We sat in my living room while David hovered nervously in the doorway. The reports were technical, full of jargon I didn't understand. But Emma had highlighted certain sections. Accelerant patterns. Suspicious origin. An investigation that went nowhere because the primary suspects were dead. I asked, horrified. Emma shook her head. There was someone else in the house that night. A neighbor reported seeing a car leave right after the fire started. I felt cold all over. She nodded. David finally spoke up. Emma looked at him, then at me. I wanted to tell Claire first. But yes. I have an appointment with a detective next week. I agreed immediately. Whatever had happened to us, we'd face it together this time. We spent the afternoon talking through every detail we could remember from that night. Emma's memories were fuzzy, because she'd been in the hospital. Mine were nightmares I tried to forget. But together, we started to form a picture. And slowly, something occurred to me. The detective's office was cold and smelled like burnt coffee. Her name was Linda Reyes, and she'd worked cold cases for 15 years. She listened to our story without interrupting. When Emma finished presenting the documents, Detective Reyes leaned back in her chair. She asked. Yes, Emma confirmed. Last year. Reyes nodded slowly. I'm going to be direct with you both. Margaret was questioned in the original investigation. We both froze. I breathed. Reyes pulled up old files on her computer. She had significant debt at the time. Your parents had a life insurance policy that listed her as secondary beneficiary if anything happened to both of them before you girls turned 18. Emma grabbed my hand. I asked, my voice rising. Reyes held up her hands. I'm saying she was a person of interest. But there wasn't enough evidence to charge her. She had an alibi. A coworker placed her at work when the fire started. But I was putting pieces together now. She kept Emma and hid me. The insurance paid out. You'd figure it out, Emma finished quietly. We'd compare stories. Detective Reyes reopened the case officially. It took 3 months of investigation. They found Margaret's financial records. Bank deposits that matched the insurance payout. Credit card statements showing she'd purchased accelerants weeks before the fire. And finally, testimony from the coworker who'd provided her alibi. He admitted, after all these years, that Margaret had paid him to lie. She'd left work early that night. She'd had time. She'd had motive. She'd murdered our parents and tried to murder us. When the detective called to tell us, Emma and I were together at my house. We'd been spending almost every day together, rebuilding what had been stolen from us. David brought us tea that neither of us drank. She's dead, Emma said flatly. I felt a strange kind of emptiness. Justice without satisfaction. No, I said slowly. But we have each other. She tried to keep us apart forever. Emma looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I pulled her into a hug. 6 months later, Emma moved to Connecticut. She found an apartment 10 minutes from my house. We have dinner together 3 times a week. We've started our own traditions. Saturday morning pancakes. Movie nights. Long walks where we fill in the gaps of our separate lives. David jokes that he gained a sister-in-law overnight. Emma jokes back that she gained a brother and finally feels like she has a real family. Some days are harder than others. We both started therapy to process everything. The grief. The anger. The strange, complicated guilt we both feel about Margaret, who raised Emma with some kind of twisted love while keeping me erased. But mostly, we're learning to be sisters again. Last week, Emma brought over a box of things from Margaret's house she'd been avoiding. At the bottom was a photo album. Pictures of me as a baby. Me with Emma. Our parents smiling. Margaret had kept them all these years, hidden away. Evidence of her crime. Evidence of us. We spent the evening crying over those photos. But we also laughed. We remembered. And we promised each other that from now on, nothing would separate us again. Not secrets. Not lies. Not even death. We survived for a reason. We found each other for a reason. And every day we're together is a day Margaret didn't win. Has anyone else ever discovered a family member you thought was gone forever?